Guys, this season is absolutely crazy. Like, genuinely absolutely crazy. And if you're not watching it, you're absolutely missing out because it's making television, guys. It's making absolute television. And we are going to be talking about episode 7 today. It has been an absolutely crazy time. We had a great round table, a great mission, a great murder. Genuinely, how much better can this series get? And to top it all off, the traitors have to kill again in murder plain sight? What's going on here? What do you mean twice in one season? That is absolutely ludicrous. But either way, we're going to jump in. But before we do, I would just like to say thank you so much for the support on these videos. It has been overwhelming. It has been crazy. It has been genuinely so lovely to hear all your thoughts, all your feelings and everything. So if you're new to the channel and you want more Traitors content, I've got so many seasons covered on my YouTube. And please subscribe, join the channel, because we will be covering all of the Traitors content coming out in the new year. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But this is crazy, guys. Let's get going. So first of all, let's start with breakfast. Breakfast was a traumatic ordeal. Let's just put it that way. I mean, listen, Joe M is becoming a little bit of a problem, especially for the traitors. I mean, you know me, I root for the traitors in this game. I think it's the hardest role to be, in my opinion. I think the faithful, you can sometimes just make it to the end by pure luck, but with the traitors, it has to be pure skill to get you to the end. So it is really difficult for me to root for the faithfuls when I don't necessarily feel like they deserve to win sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Joe M is starting to just dabble around a little bit. Him and Alan were asking Celia to sort of offer up some names, give us some idea of who you're going after. And then Joe was saying like, oh, Nick is the only true faithful in this room. Like the only one that everyone believes is a faithful. And I'm like, yeah, fair. But equally, is what it is at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like, anybody could be a traitor at any point. Do you know what I mean? There could be a recruitment. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. So saying they're a true faithful now means nothing because tomorrow they could be a traitor. Then you've got the added layer of the fact that he is pulling out of his back pocket the card of, if I'm wrong about Jonathan, vote me out tomorrow. And I'm like, that is the most aggravating way of playing the game I've ever heard. I've ever heard in my whole life is the, oh, if it's not them, then vote me tomorrow. It's like, what? Is that really your reasoning here? Come on, you've got some great arguments against Jonathan. You've got some absolute fundamental evidence against him, and yet you're just choosing to let him get away with literal murder because you're like, oh yeah, if it's not him, just vote me. No, that's not a reason to convince me to vote for Jonathan. Now, we saw in US Traitors 3 that the whole meeting Claudia or meeting Alan can be used against the traitors, okay? And it was used in a very, very unique way in Traitors US 3, where they started asking everybody who should have been in that situation, oh, what was Alan wearing? And Caroline quite literally couldn't say anything because she didn't know what Alan was wearing that night. And fortunately, that kind of got dispelled, but then it did come back up at the round table and it eventually got her banished. And this was what I think they were trying to do, but they just got the wrong thing. Do you know what I mean? If the traitors were going to murder somebody in, like, person, then they would know that they're on a chessboard. They would know that they were, like a traitor was coming towards them and then they had to turn around, the traitors were there. What they should have been asking is about the one thing that the traitors wouldn't have known, which is that Claudia was there. What was she wearing? How did she have her hair? All of this could have been used as evidence, but nobody decided to do it. And Nick even said, like, oh, XYZ happened. And then Jonathan came in and he was like, oh, yeah, I didn't really want to talk about it because I didn't want to give people any clues as to what happened so we can try and catch them out in lies. And I was sitting there going, how is Jonathan, the traitor, doing a better faithful game than the actual faithfuls? Like, I actually can't believe it. And I think this is why he's been in the game for so long, because he says things that actively make him look like he's looking for a traitor. And it is, like, spellbinding, because you sit there and you're like, why would a traitor bother even saying that? Why would you not just stay quiet? Why would you even bother saying that? Because we've never seen a traitor play this kind of game where they're essentially playing the perfect faithful game. I've not seen that as far as I'm aware. Actually, that's a lie. I did see Sari do it in US Season 1, but that was a completely different kettle of fish. I think that he is playing a fantastic game, and he is on borrowed time, do not get me wrong, but equally, you gotta give him credit where credit's due. Bro stayed in for as long as he possibly can. So very sadly, Lucy has left the building. She's gone. Lucy Beaumont, she has left, and it's a shame. It's a real shame. I really wish that we could have had more time with her, but equally her time was up. And I feel like getting rid of Kate would have really robbed us of another episode of her walking into complete silence into the breakfast table and nobody being happy that she's still alive. Like, it's just becoming a running joke at this point, and it is genuinely funny. The way she's like, is no one happy that I'm still here? And they're like, no, we are. But we're just shook by what's happened. And I do think that putting Lucy in that situation and killing her off there has actually really thrown everybody through a loop, because Joe M and Nick were both dead certain that it was her. But I also think that by taking Lucy out of the game, they've now set Kat up a little bit, because they're now thinking, okay, archetypes of traitor: lead traitor, under the radar traitor. Who is the most under the radar here? Kat, obviously. Some people were saying it was Alan in the episode, and I was like, I don't think Alan's under the radar at all. And actually, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Kat is definitely under the radar, and it is kind of scary if you ask me. I'm a little bit nervous for her. So, before we head into the mission, I just have a couple of things to talk about. First of all, David is very suspicious of Nick because of the whole swapping teams. His theory is that the traitors would have wanted to swap the teams so that there wasn't a majority traitors in a group, even though that is exactly what happened and the traitors wanted to be in a group together. Nick, like, David switching that so that Nick looks guilty because he wanted to switch it. I'm a little bit confused, purely because David's also misremembered how that went, and it was actually Joe M that started the discussion of wanting to swap, and then Nick was the one that went, let's just randomize it just to be sure. I think that David is really latching onto the wrong things, and I thought David was going to be good at this game, but alas, he is not. Now, next up is Celia and Joe M, and also, to an extent, Nick, trying to work out what is going on here. Obviously, Nick and Joe are like, it's not Lucy. That's kind of blown everything out of the water, because I was certain it was Lucy. I was really certain that she was a traitor. And this is the thing of, like, I think they were starting to think that she was a traitor because of the whole burial situation at the start. They were like, well, if it's not Nico, then could it be Lucy? And I will say a lot of people were suspicious of her, but wanting to stick close to her because they figured that she'd be the kind of person to drag her allies along to the end. But also, nobody brought up the fact that she was in the coffins, which was really interesting to me. So, yeah, very strange if you ask me, but she's gone now. She's out of the game, so not really much we can do. But anyway, moving on. What they should be doing, and what they have started to do, is rally votes, okay? This is something that they should have been doing 2 episodes ago, okay? And it's something that we saw, I first saw when I watched Australia Season 2. Remember, I watched it completely out of order. I think I watched UK 1, UK 2, then I watched Australia 2. So, really, I watched everything completely out of order. But the first time I saw people rally for votes around a round table was when Sam was rallying votes for Ash, okay? And he was doing the whole, trust me, bro mentality. Oh, trust me, bro, she's a traitor. Trust me, she's a traitor. She's a traitor, guys. Trust me. And then when people called him out on why he thought that she was a traitor, he was like, hey, I just thought she was a traitor, and I was right. Well, obviously you were right. You were also a traitor. This is what's bullshit about it. And this is why I don't like the comparisons between Sam and Jonathan, because they're playing 2 completely different games. Sam set himself up to fail, and somehow they just let him get away with it. Whereas Jonathan has made very minor mistakes, but he's passed them off very well, to the point where he's the only person they can get rid of at this point. So anyway, moving on. They are starting to rally votes to get Jonathan out, and it's something that they should have been doing ages ago. They've been going into the round table completely unsure of who they're voting for and letting the round table dictate what they're doing. And that's all well and good if you're wanting to listen to arguments and see who has the most convincing one, because sometimes you can go into a round table, someone will slip up and you'll be like, hang on a minute, what's that all about? But if you don't go in with an idea of who you're going to vote, what is the point? Come on, guys, you've got to have your own thoughts. And then the last bit before we head into the mission is the fact that they were having a conversation, this is Jonathan and Alan, with Kate, and Kate was like, oh, you know, we're going to get to the point of the game where the traitors are going to start to backstab each other a little bit, you know. They're just going to backstab each other. And Jonathan's like, no, I don't think that will happen. I think it will get to the point where there's no point in backstabbing each other because there's already so few of us, they might as well just stick together to the end. And I don't remember Alan saying anything on that matter, but he must have agreed with Jonathan. Because when Kate was retelling that story later to Joe, M, Celia, and I think Kat was there as well. Maybe it was Nick, maybe it was David. I don't know. I can't remember, guys. But Joe M was like, maybe that was two traitors talking to each other and basically being like, hey, let's not flip on each other. That's how you could interpret that conversation. And I just think Joe M has cemented himself as the best faithful this series, okay? I don't think he's going to win, but he has cemented himself as the best faithful, and you got to give him hands where hands are due. Joe M, you will be rewarded in my ranking video, don't you worry. Right, the mission was very entertaining, if you ask me. I think all the missions this series have been very good because the people that they've cast on the show have made them entertaining. They've got witty one-liners. They're constantly barracking with each other, and it's so much fun to watch. I mean, listen, having Alan scream "my testicles" on BBC One at 9 PM on a Wednesday night is not what I had on my bingo card for 2025, but fantastic television, if you ask me. Like, absolutely fantastic television. Genuinely insane. But yeah, this was a good challenge. Basically, what they had to do is they had to split into pairs. One pair, or one person in the pair, would stand at the end of a rickety bridge and basically give them words of wisdom. I don't really understand their purpose other than catching a bag at the end. They literally did nothing. The other person had to walk along the bridge, which was rickety, may I add. It was like wibbly wobbly all over the place. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this challenge. It was a lot of fun to watch. The first pair was Alan and Kate Garraway. Kate Garraway was like, you can do this. And Alan's like, oh, 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 as he's going along. And it was genuinely so exciting to watch. I really thought somebody would fall off, but they didn't. So, you know what? Fair props to all of them, because I would have been straight into that water and I'd have been like, oh, guys, this is absolutely ridiculous. And everybody managed to get 2,500, so that was good. Some other highlights were Nick just being an absolute beast with it. I'm really impressed with Nick. I think this show has done wonders for sort of his public image. I don't think it was bad to begin with, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's opened up his fan base to a whole new group of people that probably wouldn't have known who he was or just sort of what he was about. I mean, maybe they've watched Taskmaster, but again, the Traitors is doing like 5 times Taskmaster numbers, do you know what I mean? I actually don't know how much Taskmaster does, to be fair. I have just made a bold claim. But then we also had Kat. Kat, bless her. She was very, very bad at this, okay? She was very nervous and she was screaming. She was like, ah, ah, ah. And then she kept on, going, it's literally fine. It's literally fine. It's literally fine. It's literally fine. Ah! And it was so funny to watch. So Kat, again, another person that I think has really, really improved her public image. Again, wasn't bad to begin with. I don't think I should be using the word improved, but sort of opened up her public image to the public. I didn't know who she was before this. Now, I love her. I think she's incredible. I follow her on all her socials, I think. Maybe I don't. Maybe I need to follow her on Instagram. But I follow her on TikTok, and she is so entertaining. All of her little, like, TikToks after the episode is done are absolutely hysterical. Like, I feel like this has done wonders for her, this show, and I really hope that we get to see her on other shows, just because she's got such a great personality, do you know what I mean? Her just sitting in that confessional chair being like, I'm being cheeky and naughty today. Yeah, I'm being cheeky and naughty, guys. It's fine. I'm being cheeky and naughty. And then the last person was Joe Marler going across the bridge, and he was doing he was doing the Joe Marler walk. He was just doing this the entire time. And it was really funny, really entertaining, and I just had a great time watching it. Oh, and there was a whole, like, shield thing, but Joe M ended up with the shield, which I think is a good plan, purely because I think Joe M needs to stay in the game just for the drama to continue, but secretly I did want him to be killed off tonight. So, we're going to talk about Jonathan Ross throwing out his other traitors' names, okay? Now, a lot of people have interpreted this as a last-ditch effort to throw people under the bus. But actually, I think this is the best possible thing he could have done. I think he knew his time was up, or his time was nearly up, and him throwing out his fellow traitors' names as people that he's potentially suspicious of are actually the best things for him to do at this point. Because not only does it then mean that if they remember that conversation and they remember him mentioning Alan and Kat's names, kind of strikes them off a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Why would a traitor publicly out his other traitors for no reason? Do you know what I mean? And there was absolutely no reason for him to do it other than to just make people go, he's said that it's these two people. One thing that I find a lot of traitors don't do is accuse other traitors just in conversation. At the round table, it's completely different, because at the round table it is an attack. But bringing up your fellow traitors' names just in conversation throughout the day to be like, well, I'm a little bit suspicious of this person, but like, I don't have enough on them. I feel like that is the best thing you can do, because then nobody can accuse you of never ever bringing up XYZ's person's name and accusing you of both being traitors and protecting each other. Does that make sense? So I actually think Jonathan was doing a very, very good job. He's trying to protect the people that he is close to in the game, in Alan and Kat, because he knows that if he goes, then their defense, their shield is now gone, okay? And they'll be coming after them. So he's trying to set them up further on in the game. I don't think Jonathan Ross has a nasty bone in his body. If he did, he would have voted for Kat at the round table because Kat launched an attack on him. But I don't think he does. I think he was trying to help out his fellow traitors by making other people aware, but also aware that he's saying it. So when he's outed as a traitor, people might go, why would he accuse those people? Does that make sense? This round table genuinely was pandemonium. And every single round table this series has been. There's 8 people left at this round table, right? And somehow I still finished this round table unsure about where the votes were going to lie, which is crazy to me. Obviously, I knew Jonathan was going to go home, but I wasn't sure how many votes he would get. Do you know what I mean? I knew he was going home, but I wasn't sure what the sweep would be. Was he going to get everybody voting for him? Or was it going to be a case of a 3-2-1-1-1 split or something like that? Do you know what I mean? So it really, really was make or break for Jonathan. But Kate decided to start off. And I was like, okay, Kate. Speaking up finally, are we? I was like, okay, interesting, lovely, right, okay. And I have to say, she came straight out of the gate and she was like, hey, I've heard Jonathan's name, I've heard David's name, I've heard Joe's name, I've heard Nick's name, I've heard Kate's name. Oh, my name, sorry. And I would like you to address me if you think it is me. And everyone went, shut up, Kate. David's going to talk. Nobody addressed it was Kate. I genuinely do believe that nobody thinks it's her at this point. I think they all like have a secret inkling it could be her, but she's so useless and so ridiculous that like I actually just think that they know that's just her. They actually don't think it is her, so that's kind of funny. But then David was like, hey, Nick, the whole conversation with switching the teams at that challenge, like that's the biggest clue we've had so far, and you were the one that led that. And Nick was like, what? And then Joe was like, hey, David, actually, let me correct you because your memory is clearly not what it used to be. You need to sort that out, okay? You're a historian, but you can't remember what happened in this game previously. Hey, that's all I'm saying. But really, it was kind of funny. And I do feel like the castle plays tricks on people. It's a real mind game, and I feel like even the smartest people can appear dumb in moments purely because of the atmosphere in the castle. But Joe did correct him, and Joe was saying that his thoughts were that he wanted to mix the teams up so that he could have a traitor on his team so he could keep an eye on them. And I was just sort of sitting there and I was like, I don't get it. Do you know what I mean? Because like, your logic was that there was more traitors on the other team, but yet there wasn't. So you don't actually know who the traitors are. The only person you know is a traitor is Jonathan, okay? And on the other team, the remaining people are Nick and Kate, both of whom I think you think are like faithful. So your entire premise was flawed from the get-go. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, that is besides the point. I think Alan could be in trouble in the next round table. And here's why. Joe M turned to Alan and basically went, hey, I'm going to need you to speak up. You haven't really been speaking at round tables. And Alan was like, yes, I have. I have been speaking at round tables. And I have to be honest, I think Alan's been doing a very good job of at least saying something every round table. He jumps onto something. He led the charge against Mike. I think Joe M's forgetting that Alan has actually been a very vocal voice at the round table. More vocal than Kat or Celia, let's be honest, okay? And even to an extent, Nick and David. I mean, Alan has been quite vocal at round tables, giving his opinion, being like, could this be something? And actually, I felt like Alan was getting just a little bit too defensive. But then also, I don't know whether that is going to be seen as defensive or whether him and Joe just have this sort of backwards and forwards sort of like snarky bite at each other that's really entertaining to watch, but does also seem like quite vicious at times. But I do think that it came across as defensive because I know he's a traitor. But if I was sat around that table, would I think that's defensive, or would I just think, oh, that's Alan and Joe going backwards and forwards like they have all season? Do you know what I mean? Then Alan brings up a fascinating theory that it could be David because, you were almost out the other day, weren't you? You were up against Mark. You're up against Mark, not Mike, as I've realised, not Mike, Mark. And you got 5 votes. And then the next round table, they disappeared. Where did those 5 votes go? Did you and your fellow traitors start going around the castle, planting seeds that it could be other people to distract them from the fact that it's you? And I was sitting there going, Alan, wow, that was a really, really good theory. And this is why I think Alan is actually a much better traitor than anybody gives him credit for, because he is doing something that traitors don't really do around the round table and come up with outlandish theories that could point towards a faithful. And it is impressive. He came up with a theory about Mark and about how, oh, well, why would you go in and say you wanted to be a faithful? That's rubbish. You'd want to be the traitor. That was an outlandish theory. It was ridiculous, but it got him banished. Same thing with David. And I'm actually kind of impressed that he's coming up with these theories, because people will see that as a faithful trying to get traitors out. And that to me is all that can happen. So then the moment of the episode happened and I was sat there going, oh no, here we go. Here we go. This is Jonathan's downfall. He hasn't said anything so far this round table that is like defending himself. But Kat decided to launch an attack on him, and I was like, oh, okay, he's not getting out of this one. He's really not getting out of this one. I literally wrote on my second line, Jonathan getting heat from Kat. My next line was, I think the jig is up. I think he knew he was beat. I think he knew he was done, and he just had to do his best to throw something out of there. And Kat was basically like, hey, I think it's you. I still think that her reasoning is so unbelievably basic, to the point where I was sort of like, how is nobody picking out on the fact that all her theory is the big dog theory, which has been the theory for the entire series? Why has she not come up with anything herself? But then that's just a me problem. I'm not in the game, but I'm noticing that, and that to me is showing that she's not playing the perfect traitor game, because the perfect traitor game, like Alan is throwing out theories that are not popular but could be real, do you know what I mean? And that make people go, she's not just copying what everybody's thinking, do you know what I mean? Alan also launched a mini attack on Jonathan, but was kind of doing a 2-pronged attack against Jonathan and Joe M, basically saying, hey, do we actually think that you, Jonathan, and you, Joe Marler, are actually going against each other because you're traitors and you're trying to knock each other out so that you can be the big dog in the room? And I was like, Alan, that is a sensational idea, because not only does it guarantee that Jonathan goes home today, which I'm fine with at this point. He's outlived his stay. He's done a fantastic job. He's done what he needed to do to cement himself as a great traitor in my eyes, if I'm being 100% honest. Okay, he survived, what, 5 round tables, 4 of which he was the main suspect at? Come on, that's incredible behaviour. But the jig's up now. But what Alan is also doing is just laying seeds of doubt about Joe M, because if they launch an attack on him tomorrow, then easy peasy, we've got him gone. The fact that he's been so gung-ho against Jonathan and Jonathan's been so gung-ho against Joe, but neither of them have actually voted for each other until very recently, just proves that potentially they could be traitors. And hey, we just got to go with the votes. With the votes are lying, do you know what I mean? Very fascinating idea, Alan. Very fascinating indeed. So the voting came down to this. We had Joe voting for Jonathan, Kat voting for Jonathan, Celia voting for Jonathan, Jonathan voting for David, David voted for Nick, Nick voted for Jonathan, Alan voted for Jonathan, and Kate voted for Jonathan. Now, if you're asking me, I think that Jonathan had the best exit speech I have ever seen in a Traitor series, okay? There's been some good ones. There has been some very, 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 very good ones, okay? I distinctly remember, what was it, Anthony's from season 2, when he was like, you're all idiots. I remember from Simone's from Australia season 2, playing with a bunch of dummies. But this one takes the cake for traitor exits, because he was just right up until the end being like, you guys are absolutely stupid. You're so dumb. Like, it's actually unbelievable how you've made the mistake again. Like, I actually can't believe it. I really cannot believe it that you've done it again, because I have always been faithful to the traitors. And I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. I'm pissed off. I'm fuming, because if I ever went on traitors, that was going to be what I would say if I was a traitor and I got banished. That would have been my exit line, and Jonathan Ross has nicked it and stolen it from me. So I'm going to want compensation, Rossi. Okay, I need compensation, because you cannot take my intellectual ideas like that. But I'm really surprised that no other traitor has decided to use that phrase to be like, I've always been faithful to the traitors. It was just such a beautiful moment. And even I was like, wait, have I missed something? Has Jonathan Ross not been a traitor this entire time? Have I been wrong? Have I been watching a different show? Like, what's going on here? Genuinely sensational behaviour. What a great guy. What a great traitor. You'll be getting a glowing review in my final end of season review. So now we're at the point where we're having to murder in plain sight again. Again. What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing here? And not only do they have to murder in plain sight at tonight's meal, but they have to say an audible prompt. It's not writing names on a picture of a graveyard or slipping somebody a secret chalice of, like, poison, or even rubbing pollen on the face of Paloma Faith. No, somebody has to say, parting is such sweet sorrow, and then say the name of the person. Now, if I'm being honest, I feel like a lot of people are over-exaggerating how difficult this could be. And even Kat came up with a perfect excuse. Alan could just be like, I love the way that they're making Alan do it again. Alan could just be like, oh, Stephen once said, parting is such sweet sorrow. Which I don't think they've worked out as Shakespeare. First of all, it's Shakespeare. And they could just easily get rid of Celia. I think, sadly, Celia's time is done on the show. I cannot see them killing Nick. I can't see them killing Kate. I can't see them killing David. I think it's going to have to be Celia, sadly. And I think Alan's going to use that as another potential, I can't believe they killed my friend, to try and make it out. But really, I cannot see this going well. I cannot see this going well in the slightest. But I am really, really rooting for both Alan and Kat to make it to that final and to win the show. Because can you imagine Alan Carr being a winning traitor? Can you imagine? From the first episode when he looked like he was going to be out immediately and caught at the first round table, to making it to the final, to winning the show, I would definitely stand that. But that is all we've got time for today. I am genuinely blown away by this series. There's so much to talk about. I'm sorry these episodes are so long, but I would rather get all my thoughts out, all my feelings, and really dive into everything I want to really give you guys an idea of where I'm at. But wow, what a show. And we've only got 2 episodes left as well. And then we've got to wait until January. To be fair, I think this has been a good bridging gap, do you know what I mean? Because I just finished New Zealand, and then this came on a couple of weeks later, and then I'm going to finish this, and then like UK and US is going to start in the new year. Hopefully Ireland drops soon. Actually, Ireland does drop soon in the BBC iPlayer, so I'll be doing that as well. But yeah, what a show. What a brilliant show. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you guys later. Keep on ranting. Bye now. See ya.